Hello everyone, welcome back to the Simply Put podcast show, the best show on the internet, which has been proven many times by myself, and that's the only person who's proven it. Anyway, enough about me, let's jump right in to what the show's about, and today's show, we're going to talk a little bit about The Binding of Isaac. And straight up, I love The Binding of Isaac. I think it's a great game, and I can't wait to talk about it. So let's jump right into it. It's made by Edward McMillen, who also made Super Meat Boy and other various indie little experimental titles. And he's a very, very nice man and a very good developer. And The Binding of Isaac is essentially a roguelike. And what that means is when you die, and you have to start over the game again. And I guess it would also be a shooter, because you shoot tears out of your eyes. You know, when the more and more you think of the concept of Isaac itself, the more you realise how actual weird it is. It's a very weird game, but I love it for that. And so if you don't actually know what Isaac is, feel free to go play it and then come back. That's how this show should work anyway. You should already actually know what Isaac is, and then watch this, and then you'll get more out of it. So let's jump straight into the good stuff about The Binding of Isaac. And the first thing I gotta say is the mixture between the cuteness and the disgusting part of Isaac. That little mishmash is done so brilliantly and so subtly, it's mind-blowing. Because you take poo, for example, that's disgusting, but to add that smiley face and those sound effects is incredible. It's ingenious to make, and it's that, I think they know this. They're that self-aware that they realise the juxtaposition of those two things make it that much better. And you wouldn't actually think that, would you? You wouldn't think that making a poo cute would actually make it that much better, but it actually does. And so that's brilliant. That is definitely one of the best things about Binding of Isaac, is that clear distinction between the cuteness and the disgustingness. Coming up at number 2, we got the items, and it's probably the biggest content part of Isaac, and it's what changes each run as you go through it, is the actual items themselves. But it's not just the items, because it's the synergy you get with those items that changes the game. It's basically, what I'm saying is good is the gameplay, because when you get an item and synergize it with something else, it adds that much more value to it. And I also like how you find them. I also like there's a good balance as well, and rarity of the items in Isaac, and they really do make the game it is, because without them it wouldn't be a very good game, would it? It would just be a series of levels. And it's an interesting design decision, but yes, the items overall are great, and I think there's no denying that, and the synergies with them as well just add that little bit more value to them, and that's why I like them so much. Coming in with our next one is, I just want to, speaking of the items actually, this does link in with it, and it's the content Isaac actually delivers. And that's the crazy thing, because there is a lot, and I mean a lot of content. There is a challenge mode, which adds hours and hours of entertainment and different things you didn't quite think of. Because when you do a run of Isaac, you know, you get the various items and they basically make your run or how it is played. Whereas with the challenges, it changes that and it deliberately makes it more difficult or more novel. And they're really clever, and I really like the challenge mode. But there's not just that. There's also the greed mode, which in my opinion is, it's a tough one. It's okay, but it's okay. And I'm glad that it's there. It's not mind-blowing. It's just a really cool, niche little side objective thing, which is really cool. Again, it just adds and adds and adds to all this content pile that is just ever so growing. Even now, with the release of Afterbirth, there's even more, and there's more. And it's a game that truly has so much love inside it and so much care that it really just shines through. It does. The content is just amazing as well. And finally, on the good stuff, is the overall mystery. This is one of those opinions that is debatable, because I know the argument for this is the mystery is not good because, well, first First, I should specify what I mean by mystery. I mean that the game doesn't tell you anything. And the biggest criticism I found that The Binding of Isaac has is that it doesn't tell you anything and it makes it bad. But I'm going to argue that it is good because of the nature of the genre it's in. The Binding of Isaac is a roguelike, like we said earlier, and the fact that it's a roguelike, to add that mystery element is ingenious, because you're going to be replaying the game again and again. If it told you the item description, sure, that would be nice, but the fact that it doesn't adds this whole new level, because you are going to run into those items again, and it adds a new level of gameplay. It's like, what does this weird thing do? What does this weird thing does? And it adds intrigue, and it just makes the game feel more foreign yet intriguing. It's a brilliant design decision. I don't know whether or not they took inspiration from Zelda 1 itself by not telling you what it did, but either way, I think it's great. I think the criticisms are fair, that it maybe in some sections it should tell you what the item does. Maybe if you've picked it up a certain amount of time, it should say that it does this, okay? It does this. But overall, I think that it's good that it doesn't show it. And that's my opinion. So that's all the good things. Let's now move on to the bad things in The Binding of Isaac I thought was bad. And now here's the tough part, because I could only think of one thing that was bad. And I'll get onto that in a minute, but I'll just quickly talk about what I think was bad in The Binding of Isaac, and that is simply the animated cutscenes that play when you beat the game or sometimes when you start the game. I am really nitpicking at them, but they feel very out of place due to the art style, and I don't like to critique them and say, oh, they look cheap or amateur, because I don't like saying that, but yeah, they do feel a little bit jarring to look at and a little bit out of place. But that's the only bad thing I can think of, and it frustrates me because Binding of Isaac is so content filled and it's so well made. So much love and care has gone into the game and years of development time. They've sanded out all the edges. They've refined it and refined it over and over until it's like a polished thing. Another thing I want to say about it is that the reason for this, I think, is that it's so focused. It doesn't do a lot of things. Isaac doesn't have a campaign and all this fun stuff. Well, I shouldn't really say fun stuff, but it doesn't have all these other things it's trying to do. It focuses exactly on what it wants to do, specifies on that, and builds from it. It doesn't spin so many plates around, instead it just spins one. And I think that's why Binding of Isaac is so brilliant at what it does, is because it does it. It does the thing it knows it's good at really, really well. And I think that's gonna finish up my little talk on The Binding of Isaac. I wish I had more to say on it, but it's a great game. If you haven't played it, I think you really should, because it's a great experience. And yeah, so it's been a nice short one today. So thank you very much for listening. If you made it this far, don't forget to subscribe and like, and most importantly, tell me what you thought about Isaac, because maybe I'm just biased here and just jaded in thinking it's the perfect thing in the world, but tell me if you agreed or disagreed with me. I'm very interested in to know somebody else's opinion on this. So I've been James, and you've been listening to the Simply Put podcast. Goodbye.